Okay, so next up, we have Rebecca Waring, who is Global VP of Insights and Solutions at Unruly. And Rebecca is going to be talking to us about what effects the pandemic has had on the portrayal of women in advertising, which, given it was International Women's Day just on Monday this week, I think is a very poignant topic for us to talk about. So, Rebecca, welcome to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And let me share this data with you about how consumers are perceiving the presence of stereotypes, or in fact the opposite, progressive, authentic portrayals of women in advertising, especially last year, which has been a very unusual year for advertising in many ways. Just want to explain as background how we're collecting a consumer view on whether an ad is progressive or not. So we asked them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. This is part of our larger ongoing ad testing process. There are more than 500 ads actually have been tested with this measurement. So if an ad scores 10 for gender portrayal, it's highly authentic, positive, or even progressive. If it's kind of 1 or 2, that's what a consumer would perceive as stereotypical, lazy, or demeaning. And I think it's really interesting having this consumer point of view, because it can be what they perceive as a good portrayal of gender can be very different from what the industry sometimes sees as a kind of really successful piece of work. So the global average is actually quite good. So there's reason for optimism, 7.4. So that's just below the kind of like progressive brackets. So most ads do have a decent portrayal of women. This is how we've broken it up for the analysis. So 1 to 3 is stereotypical, 4 to 7 is neutral, and 8 and above is progressive. And this is the kind of results it can drive. So just to kind of get people excited about the power of authentic portrayal of gender in advertising, it really does drive not just a good emotional response, as you would expect from consumers, but it also drives brand favorability and purchase intent. So there's a very strong business case for attempting to really get it right with your gender portrayal. And I thought it was really interesting to note that if you look at stereotypical and neutral, they're quite close to each other. So there's not a huge difference between stereotypical versus neutral portrayal, whereas a progressive ad really, really stands out. As you can see, it's like a big step up on those charts. And then just getting into the psychological responses that these ads evoke, the ones that stand out the most for progressive ads versus the others are happiness, inspiration, amazement, and warmth. And I just wanted to pick out 2 of those. Amazement and inspiration are, in our experience and in thought leadership that we've actually carried out with the IPA, 2 of the most effective emotions you can evoke in advertising. So those are 2 of the ones that are most likely to drive real-world brand and business impact. And those are the ones that are coming through, particularly standing out from the norm for progressive gender portrayals. And then outside of emotion, they also can be really informative and surprising. And these 2 characteristics of ads are really important as well for changing perceptions of brands. So to really make people think better of your brand, change their opinion, put it in their consideration set, it's really important to surprise them in some way or strongly inform them so that you are having that long-lasting cognitive impact. And if you can see the stereotypical ads with the red line, they're a little bit more likely to drive confusion, disgust, and contempt, which are negative responses. But it's all about the positive side. It's all about the benefits you can see. That's where progressive ads really stand out. So coming to, did COVID impact the way brands are portraying women in advertising? It seems like it really did. So if you look at this comparison of 2019 to 2020, in 2019, 9% of ads were viewed as having a progressive gender portrayal, whereas in 2020, it's 25%. So it was much less neutral and much more on the positive side. And I've got a couple of examples of what that looks like to wrap up with. 2021 so far, interestingly, seems to have reverted back to the usual breakout of stereotypical versus neutral versus progressive. But I would say it's very early in the year still, so I'm expecting we'll have some more big tentpole events that people are advertising around. For example, Christmas advertising is very important to the yearly landscape of ads. So 2021 is a work in progress, but I hope we will continue to see more progressive gender portrayals this year. And then I just wanted to bring it to life by just showing examples of the kind of ads that have scored the most highly in terms of gender portrayal, because it might not be what you think. Last year, 2020, wasn't a year where we saw that many explicit feminist messages in advertising. However, we did see very good diversity and portrayal of women in ads, even though it wasn't the main theme of the ad, it was there. So for example, in this ad from Google, it showed women in all different kinds of, positions of authority, playing a very important role in society, and men as well. Obviously, that's all part, we're talking about gender, not just females, in fact. So this ad kind of had a very good, realistic, authentic view that uplifted both genders. And then it's not all COVID-themed ads that scored really highly. So this was one of the most high-scoring ads in English-speaking markets, and this was Google's response to COVID. But the other was Lego's Christmas ad, which didn't reference COVID. But you can see here, just from this still, you can see it was very kind of whimsical and uplifting ad. But again, had a diverse cast, which you can already see in this image, and it showed, good parenting role models, good kind of images of children being able to kind of shape the world or see themselves being whatever they want to be, whatever their gender. So 2020 was a standout year for gender portrayal. However, it wasn't just the COVID ads that achieved that. So this Christmas ad from Lego is a great example of how we can take that forward into this year.